Hello, Nina. Good morning.
Good morning, Giovanni. And can you tell me some words about that association? You are the president. What's the name of it?
Yeah, the name of the association I created in April, March last year. It's EUcraina, which is, let's say, it puts together the EU as a European Union symbol and Ucraina. Ucraina is the Italian name for Ukraine.
How did it start? Whose idea was that? Yours?
Yeah, it was something, let's say, spontaneous and immediate that I started, as I said, March 22, 1 year ago, after the invasion of Ukraine. And I wanted to, so we were shocked also here and very worried, actually. You know very well that in the first days, first weeks, we didn't know how we would have succeeded on the Russian part. So spontaneously, I asked myself, what can I do concretely to support, to help Ukraine, to support and to help my friends actually,
They are in Ukraine, yes?
who are in Ukraine, of course. We can talk about it, but I worked in Ukraine and I'm still active in Ukraine, also with Ukrainian NGOs. So I have many friends in Kiev and in other cities, friends like you, actually. So after the shock of the invasion, first thought is, what can I do? And so together with some friends in Italy, actually who are the editor of a newspaper, an entrepreneur, university professor in philosophy, so quite important person in our community. We bound together and we created
Sorry, I
an
interrupted you.
association.
Where do you live in Italy?
I live in the region of Trento in northern Italy. Actually, it's in the Alps, in the mountain in Italy, very close to the Austrian border. It is a community where we have very strong, give much importance to autonomy of the region, because we are an autonomous region actually in Italy. And also, we have a quite high sense of community, of staying together, of being solidal and helping each other. That's tradition in this region. So, and I created the association in, of course, in the region where I live.
Are there any origin Ukrainians?
If there are Ukrainians here,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there are Ukrainians living and working in this area in Italy. Yes, definitely. Maybe most of them come from the Western Ukraine because we are closer actually, and they are also organized in associations. The main one is called Razom, like
Together, yeah.
together exactly,
Ukrainian.
and this association support the Ukrainian people in this region, and also they do education in Ukrainian language for children, for Ukrainian culture, and of course they are now also very active in supporting their relatives and their friends in Ukraine after the war. So 1 year ago, as I said, we created this association.
When did
We
you
did,
first go to Ukraine with
yeah.
this support?
Yeah. One of the first things we wanted to do was to bring some help, something in Ukraine, which was needed. We got in touch with our friends and we did what we could. So not that much, but quite soon, immediately after or soon after Kiev was liberated, or was like actually the siege of Kiev
Area, yeah,
by the
yeah.
Russians failed. The Russian had to retreat. So, and a week after, I was personally in Ukraine together with my friend Paolo, who is a journalist, editor of a newspaper here, and we went to Kiev. Actually, we were there for Easter last year, and we brought a drone and some other equipment which was useful and requested by our friends. We collected some funds in Italy for that.
The friends in Ukraine requested you about that, yes? So
Yes.
you told you what they needed, yeah?
Yes, indeed, indeed. Of course, not all what they needed. I could have brought maybe more,
Of
but
course, but
actually,
you
I want
you
to
could do, yeah, yeah.
yeah, to highlight that we did the association in order to help and to support, of course, the Ukrainian friends and Ukrainian people in general, but not only by sending equipments or goods which were needed, but also we wanted to do something more, that is to show this solidarity also with our presence in Ukraine. So it's not that we just sent the goods, we brought the goods personally, and we stayed there in Ukraine for a full week, even more. And we went in the villages, we met people we knew or new people, and also by way of being present in person, we tried to show our support, our moral support. It's
Were,
not just,
mhm.
let's say, technical support or
Were they
probably
happy to see you in
yeah,
April?
I think this has been appreciated and it has been worked. We brought the solidarity of a community actually in Italy. It was not just the two persons coming here, but we came on behalf of many others, and we made clear this message: we are with you, we are solidar with you, we support you, and we will support you also in the future. And that's what we did over this year, the past year.
So you were the first people who came here just after the liberation of that area near Kiev, yeah?
Uh, let's say maybe among the first ones, yes. We came by car actually,
Mm-hmm.
straight from home. Yeah, there are not many who do like this because now Ukraine, you cannot fly into Ukraine, and you have to take a train. But we came by car, and it worked. So we could also freely go around Kiev, Ukraine, and actually, yeah. And as I said, and to bring our personal solidarity, being there physically, not just sending goods. We did this another two times over the last year. We have been again in
Autumn, I
September.
remember that visit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In September, and then in December, January, actually. So we stayed there several weeks, actually, and we both in September and even more in December, we traveled through Ukraine. We have been to Kiev, of
And
course.
you brought generators,
Yes,
accumulators, I know.
we did a bigger fundraising in November, December in order to support the Ukrainian people, which had been in the meantime directly attacked by Putin,
Yep.
who, not being able to win on the military front, on the military field, waged a war against the Ukrainian people, simple and civilian people in all Ukraine, and you know very well, by bombing all of Ukraine and by deliberately making the living conditions for the ordinary people in Ukraine
I remember that period. It was a
very,
disaster
very
here.
difficult.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
wanted to intervene also in this emergency. So we managed to raise funds in our community, more
Very
than,
quickly, yeah.
yeah, yeah, at least 200 people or subjects donated for Ukraine.
200 people.
Yeah, people
Oh,
and some companies. Yes, yes,
oh,
yes, yes.
cool,
You know,
cool.
some people just donated maybe a few euro because they only had this, but altogether we succeeded in raising a quite considerable amount of money, and we could buy generators, mainly generators, but also other equipments or thermal clothing and these kind of things which were needed. And we brought them in Dnipro, mainly to the community of Dnipro, actually to the
Which
municipal
was
council.
damaged, one of the
Yeah,
most cities, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Dnipro, as you know, it's a big city, close to, is not on the front, but it's immediately after the front. So it's not far from the eastern front and also from the southern front. So it has many refugees and
So you
also the,
know exact places, people, and who needed generators and everything, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
We
you
did
know
it
them
through
personally.
in yes, yes, yes. We did it in collaboration with the municipal council, and with the major also. We met also the major, and so we don't want to. I think it's important to consider also the local institutions and to cooperate with them. But we stayed there more than a week, so we could visit refugees, children, so let's say weakest part of the community, even in the villages around, a hospital,
I
and
saw the photos with their happy faces. You met people in the informal sometimes situations, yes, and they
yeah,
were happy to see you, happy to get those things from you, yeah.
yes, outside Kiev, which has an international presence, of course, journalists and also association organizations, international organizations. The more you go out of Kiev, the less international presence there is. And so our presence were very appreciated also because of this, because we were the only Italians they have met after the war and among the few internationals who have been there.
And what is the city or town where were the happiest, the warmest meetings with you?
We had a very good meetings and a good experience for us, in particular in Novgorod-Sibirsk, in Chernihiv region, up in the north, close to the Russian border. It's actually the village which in the morning of the 24th of February has been invaded. It's where they entered in order to go to, the Russian entered in order to invade Kiev, actually, Kiev.
You told me
And
about they were like partisans in the forests that time,
yeah, yeah. And it's a community which also it's not so well connected also with the rest of Ukraine. It's quite far away. And our friends in Kiev told us rather than supporting us, who have also other connections, and in Kiev it's a bit easier to get support. They suggested us to get in touch with them who were more in need, being a, let's say, a small community and quite far away, even from Kiev now. They are not, the connections are, the road connections are have been damaged, severely damaged by.
Was it hard to drive for you?
In general, it was not that, but yeah, to reach that community, it was because some bridges were destroyed, and the tour were actually on very bad roads, and yes,
What was
it
the
was
most
challenging.
what was the most dangerous trip in December and January? What was the direction of it? Maybe Kherson?
Um, we have been to Kherson as well, Kherson region actually, together with a local NGO foundation actually from Odessa, who is helping the army. We traveled together with them and we visited the Kherson region where it has been the fighting actually for the liberation of Kherson. It was rather impressive, of course, and yeah, and of course the situation was rather difficult, but there have been no active fighting there, but it's still
They are shooting
they are shooting indeed,
from the left
indeed.
bank.
Uh, indeed. There are random shooting because, as you very well know, what Putin cannot get, Putin tends to destroy. And he had to leave Kherson, and now they are, let's say, they are bombing Kherson because it's no longer there. But I was together with these friends from Odessa who were very, very effective,
Brave, I think brave,
and
very
very
brave.
brave and very good, and
Like many
quite
Ukrainians
yeah.
now, yes, and you, of course, with your team,
No,
your
they really are.
journalists.
They also go to Bakhmut to help the soldiers. So I mean, I didn't do anything so dangerous or so heroic, not at all.
You're very
Uh,
modest, yeah.
no, but I mean, it's like this, but that's what we want to do. As I said, with the association, helping as far as we can. I mean, not that much, but materially, supporting also, let's say, morally, and it has been, and we also gained a lot of so very good experiences by doing this. And even in the most, especially actually in the most remote communities in Ukraine we visited. And then we also want to work, and we work in Italy in our community in order to support the Ukrainian cause, the Ukrainian position, and in the public debate and in.
Oh, really? Even public debates over here, yeah?
Well, let's say on the media, on the social media, on our
What do you
newspapers.
talk about?
All these trips have been documented and filmed, and we in all the three occasions we did a trip diary actually. So I mean, which has been put on the media, Italian media, especially in our region, on newspapers, where we not only told the story of our trip, of our meetings, which is also important because it's important for the donors to know what we have done with their money. It's good that they know that we could help really people on the ground with this. But it was also done in order to bring the Ukrainian voices in Italy by telling the story of the people we met, by interviewing them. We let also a friend in Kiev, an activist, a young activist.
So the interest and the wish to support us not is going down, yeah?
There is a risk, of course, and that's what we are trying to counter. And there is a lot of propaganda, especially from the bad part, from the bad parties.
Yeah.
And we try to counter by letting, instead of, or rather than being us telling things, because maybe people don't, let's talk with the Ukrainian people, because they, for instance, in Italy or in Western society, they think that the Russian speakers are discriminated or oppressed in Ukraine, and they were there waiting to be liberated by the Russians. That's what propaganda and also.
I read the discussion about negotiations with Russia now. Yes, so what's your point of view for that?
Our position that we made clear on the media and so on is that the negotiations comes, of course, after the Russians have been pushed out of Ukraine. And then there will be, of course, a negotiation in order to secure the peace, because it's not enough that they can go back. One has to be sure that it never happens again.
What are the measures, for your opinion, to protect us of the next invasion of in the Europe, of the next trials?
I'm afraid it depends very much from where sits in the Kremlin, and we will see. Certainly, securing a border, for instance, with the international troops and so on, it's not an easy task, and it might not even work because the border, you know very well.
What about the tribunals?
Yeah, that's another story. But I mean, for the military security, one has to think creatively and in deep with negotiations, of course, with international guarantees, of course, of a long-standing peace. And the tribunal is just a matter of justice for war crimes. It's also necessary, and it has to be set up. But it also will require negotiations in any case.
Is the idea of the tribunals supported by Italians?
Yes, it's not the most difficult part. We have to fight in our public opinion in Italy and in Western public opinion the idea of, which I mentioned, of the need of liberation of at least part of the Ukrainians, the Russian-speaking Ukrainians, like the Russian speakers means Russian lovers, which is not.
Yes,
You know very well. But in our opinion, in our public opinion, this idea is still unclear, and propaganda works very much on it. And that's one of the things to be said. And the other danger in our public opinion is that they are they might get tired. And of course, Russia is working hard on it by the war, and the long war, which means prices of energy and of goods in general are going up, rocketing, but the energy, the weaponization of the energy of gas has failed, fortunately, because we were too much dependent from the Russian gas, we Europeans. But quickly we managed to be at least less dependent and to find alternatives. And also the weather has helped us very much. It has been
Oh
mild.
yes, the warmest winter ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes.
for believers, one could say God had help,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
but it's really a big help actually. And actually, it's a big failure of Putin, which might be dangerous for him because he also pays a cost for selling less gas
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, sure. And what are the plans? You said the enthusiasm of Italians a little going down, yes, to support because we are very tired, all of us very tired to be involved in this terrible situation, terrible war everywhere, all over the world. We are changing, of course, here and there. And what's your opinion for the future of the support of your association and visiting us?
But I think there are, could say, three fronts of this war. One is the most visible one, most obvious one is the military front on the field, where people are dying actually every day. But there you see, I mean, the Russians are not winning. Maybe they are not losing yet, but they are not winning. That's for sure.
The most important thing, by the way, yeah.
Indeed, so they are blocked.
Mm-hmm.
Then Putin moved, also expanded the war to the civilian population of Ukraine, to all Ukraine, targeting the civilian in order to break their resistance, actually, and to hoping that they would surrender somehow, because if the life becomes unbearable, so he tried this. It didn't work. It didn't work. We can already say in this winter because the Ukrainian suffered very much, but resisted very bravely, actually. And then there is the third front, which where the fighting is still going on, and there is no success yet by any of the parties. And actually, the third front, as I call it, is the Western societies or the Western countries, or the Western, better said, Western government and Western public opinions, actually, where Putin is acting in order to weaken or to suppress actually the support of the Western government to the Ukrainian community and actually to the Ukrainian army. So Putin knows that without the economical and also military support, the weapons actually, that Ukrainian army is getting from abroad, from, let's say, Western, what we call Western countries. It's a generic name which is not even precise, but to be understood. Without this support, Ukraine might not be able to last or to fight for a long time against Russia. So far, the reaction over the last year of the Western country has been very good and united. It was not so obvious to be expected, and they are supporting Ukraine also militarily, even though they could do possibly they could do more, but they are doing effectively. And Putin is trying to break this solidarity, this support, and it would be very important for him to succeed, actually, because it's the only way he could possibly succeed in the war if this solidarity, also the weapon delivery, would be cut or would be weakened. And that's why he has opened this third front, mainly targeting our public opinions, not only with propaganda, but also with trying to create situations which would trigger a reaction of our public opinions, of our voters towards our governments, asking them to suspend or to block or to stop the weapon delivery to Russia in order to overcome the difficulties, in particular of
Can I
the
interrupt
prices
you?
of gas and so on.
Of course, the harder life now, yes,
Yeah,
than
indeed.
before. Of course, but who are those people? They are naive. They are victims of propaganda. I mean, who are in the circle of his propaganda,
There
who
is
believe him.
a bit of everything. Okay, there are those who are, let's say, prone to propaganda or even connected to or tools of Russian propaganda. But it's not only that. There is a component which is ideological one. There has always been in our society, which who thinks that what America does is always wrong. It's not that America did
I
always good
understood.
things in the
I
past,
see.
but they have an ideological vision. Okay, U.S., NATO, it's bad, and also Russia is somehow seen still by some because they grew up in this ideology that Russia is the good,
The
like it was the
influence
communist.
was very big, yeah,
Yeah,
and
indeed,
is big, was big,
indeed.
used to be,
So
used
there
to
is a
be.
bit of this ideology, and then there is also there are sincere, let's say, people who want the peace, just the peace, but actually don't see the reality that is that peace in this case, in this war, can be obtained only by defeating the invasion, actually. And you defeat an armed invader only if you have sufficient weapons. You need weapons to force an invader to go back.
And what is the next step? What are you going to do in the future?
We are trying to, so we participate in the debate that there is in our public opinion here, and we do it by articles in the local or in the national newspapers, showing that it is also our interest to support the Ukrainian resistance. It's our moral obligation, and it's also our interest to do so, to continue to do so, and also bringing here the voice of the Ukrainians by letting them access our media. And in the future, I'm confident we will be able to invite here some majors of occupied villages in Ukraine to talk to the people in Italy.
Great
And
idea,
also,
Giovanni.
and also some activists from Ukraine. I think that the same things said by people who have experienced and who are witness what is happening in Ukraine are also more effective.
Of
And it's
course,
a good
of
way to
course.
counter propaganda. And
Thank you very much for this interview. You agreed to do it for our people, for Italians or whoever wants to see you, to meet you, and to understand the situation with all of us and the support of Italians over there in Trento and in Italy. Yes. Thank you, Giovanni.
thank you, Nina, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!